Hello there, everyone listening. I'm going to try to be brief with this. Okay, so this is Robert Hastrup Timmy speaking, also known as Morpheus things. I usually go Morpheus things. Okay, look, so I decided to leave this message because I genuinely feel touched about what is happening in the job marketplace in the United States, in the UK, across Europe, and around the world. And as somebody who's been in technology and Wall Street, at least going all the way back to the 90s, I feel like I've seen everything. So I'm a Gen X, and I'm going to explain to you, guys, that be prepared for what is about to happen. So I'm leaving this podcast link, which I'm going to put on our blockchain company YouTube page, which is kind of informal in terms of what we actually do there and so on. We cover a lot of things, but I don't really keep that up to date. I focus more on our 4irgpt.com platform and, helping also trying to bring our 4IR token, which is one of the first regulated tokens in the world. Yes, that's very hard to believe. Out of 99.99% tokens, they're all scammy, most of them, and so on. No, I took my company through a process of regulation because I understand that. And it is with those kinds of understandings of technology. I worked in Silicon Valley. I'm from London. I've even worked once for the Queen's broker once, you know what I mean? I've seen a lot of things, yeah. So I'm born and bred British of African parents. I've lived in America, Spain, everywhere. I've seen it all. And I'm about to share, and I've been through periods of recession. So what I'm about to share with you is this, but I also understand from being a university dropout in social psychology, I understand I spend a lot of time observing because I'm also like, as a Home Alone kid, I used to talk to myself because I was a Home Alone kid. Okay. And up to this very, very day, if you stand outside my door, you might think that there's somebody in my house. No, I live all by myself and I talk to myself every day. And I'm very comfortable with that. I use that as a way to solve problems, okay, and observe the world in terms of what I do. So what I'm about to share with you is also based on years of collecting data based on some of the work we do at Blockchain Company. I've curated over 16,000 videos, and I've seen everything. So here's what's happening. The world has now changed. It's not even about to change. It's already changed. I was inspired to start 4IR because the World Economic Forum, and by the way, I'm not a member of the World Economic Forum, okay? Nothing wrong with it. It's just the most elite organization in the world, okay? Where all the presidents, all the CEOs go there and so on. Anyway, President Klaus the CEO, anyway, the founder of World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, his name is, right. He wrote this book called The Fourth Industrial Revolution back in 2015-16. I got a copy of that book and I was actually inspired by what he was saying, even though I was already curating a lot of content and so on in terms of technology and finance and lifestyle and all of that stuff. So I had a very, very good perspective of the world because also coming from Wall Street and Silicon Valley and stuff like that, technology being one of the first to actually use the internet before it got commercialized and so on. I was the stock options analyst at Macromedia. I understood all these things because I grew up with all of it. Now, what Schwab was saying is that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. In the fourth industrial revolution, it means AI, it means quantum computing, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, genetic engineering. You will be able to genetically engineer yourself. All of these things that you may agree with or not agree with. But here's one thing that we all need to understand. Remember, humans were once Homo sapien before we became human that we are today, modern human. Did you guys know that? I couldn't believe this, and I only found this out recently. I'm not that clever. Speech, as I speak to you, like so, speech only emerged 60,000 years ago. Before that, it was like this. Okay, now, once you understand the universe, yeah, we are just, a drop in the ocean in the universe. Who knows? Maybe there are infinite civilizations out there. So we are evolving all the time. We are now in the next paradigm of evolution, which we call the fourth industrial revolution. And in that fourth industrial revolution, everything could change. Not essentially everything, but a lot of things will change. Yeah. So today, most people will ask you, what job do you do? Yeah. But tomorrow, a lot of people are going to ask you, what business do you do? Or what business do you work with? And if they ask you what business do you work with, they are actually implying that, or assuming that you work with a very small, tight team of people, maybe no more than 5, at most 10. Okay, why? Because the way we work, live, and play has been seriously disrupted, and it is still being disrupted. Remember, as a Gen X, I grew up, right? We didn't have phones, and it didn't, I grew up, through the 80s and stuff, which was amazing, the best time to be alive, no internet and anything like that. Life was so bliss. Do you see what I mean? Yeah? All these devices are merely distractions. Social media is merely distractions. I feel a lot of empathy for my Gen Z friends, okay, who I hang out with and stuff like that, yeah? Because you guys, if you're listening to this, if you're a Gen Z listening to this, you haven't had the chance to engage the way, say, millennials and previous generations, baby boomer, Gen X engaged. Okay, so you're really, really getting the brunt of it. And that's one of the reasons why I thought that I'd leave this message. Now, with respect, so I'm just going to keep it focused on jobs for the moment because there's a lot more to talk about, but I don't want to do that here at the moment. Let's keep it in terms of jobs. You are going to see my view. This is only my view, okay? You can take your view, other analysts, if you're listening, to take your own view and so on. I follow people like Scott Galloway, Tom Billio, and all of these people because I curated their content. I've been following them for years. But I've also, as I said to you, I curated 16,000 videos myself, all organically handpicked over 7 years, and I watched most of them. I think I've got a fair perspective of humanity broadly. We are now on the verge of something very dark before it gets better. Somebody like Mo Godart talks about this, that the next 10 years are going to be very brutal. And the simple reason why they're going to be brutal is because we're going through another paradigm shift. In fact, I will call it an epoch. If I infer to James Lovelock, his last book is called Nova Scene. See if you can get it, okay? And it's a very simple book to read, okay? And he explains what, in his view, artificial intelligence actually means for humanity, okay? Because indeed, we are now going to, have a higher agency species. I call AI a species. That's a different conversation, but I can tell you how I've arrived at that, maybe in another podcast. My point here is that jobs are no longer going to be traditional in the way you are working today. Not all of them will go away, but when we say jobs are going to be impacted, Goldman Sachs says 300,000, McKinsey says up to almost 1 billion, 960,000 or so. The World Economic Forum said about, maybe 80 million. Oxford University said, back then, they said 46% of jobs in the United States will disappear. Something like that. And they said that back in 2016. So when I allude or I draw a parallel correlation to horses and cars, try to think about it. If you lived in the 1800s, in the mid to late 1800s, that's only just it's less than 200 years ago, right? If you lived in those days, you most likely, if you were going to work, if there was work traditionally back then, okay, maybe you got on a horse to ride to work, or a carriage or something like that, with horses. Okay, well, those horses went away because the car came along. And of course, indeed, the car's a lot faster than the horse. In the same way, an airplane could get you to a destination a lot quicker than a boat or ship. So when I draw that correlation, take it very, very seriously. In fact, in the UK, our Channel 4 did a whole program where they interviewed a couple of AI experts or whatever who inferred to the same thing that, well, we're kind of like the new horse. But the difference is that we're blessed with intelligence and creativity as human beings, okay? And this is where I say to you, in that writing that you've seen there on LinkedIn, the post to Nicholas Thompson of The Atlantic. So what I say is that, look, you need to start a business today. Don't wait. Why? It's very simple. Did you know that there are actually about over 100 million domain names already registered, from GoDaddy to other, registrars, as it were? Anybody can register a domain in just a few minutes. Costs you about $10, $20, to register a domain name. And a domain name typically represents something, whatever it is, okay, whether it's a business or something else. So you can also buy what is called premium domain names that, they've been around for a while and they represent a vertical industry or whatever it is, okay? Those will cost you a lot of money, many thousands, sometimes even seven figures or more. It just really all depends on what it is. But by and large, though, if you are creative, you can actually go and register a domain name anyway. Okay, get it? All right. Now, so you register a domain name today of something that you're passionate about. You want to know one of the reasons why I say passion is because we're actually moving into a paradigm of passion. You see, the way we work traditionally today is mostly slavery. It's just a modernized form of slavery. See, we are evolving as a human species. But now you're going to actually start to do what you love to do. And you will be able to make money from it. And here's the good news, that AI is going to do most of it for you. So you and a small team, along with AI agents and agentic AI, will work for you while you sleep. And they never sleep. 24/7. Okay? You will, however, have to use your critical thinking. Okay? You can't just, be blasé about it. Do you understand? You would still need to be creative. And there will still be certain other mechanisms. Like, for instance, you could use 4-Hour GPT, where we have created prompt media channels for prompts creators. Whether you're working for a company or you're starting your business, you can get leads. You can offer insights to your critical thinking through your prompt channel, like a YouTube, video channel where you're talking about, but here you're doing prompts. Prompts can lead to discovery, innovation, creativity, and so on and so on. That is the exciting time to be alive. I've seen it all. Okay, and I'm trying to tell you now, actually, the biggest concern that I have is that, will the tech oligarchs, will they do the right thing? Or will they turn into monsters? Because when I talk about an AI future, I'm talking about an egalitarian future, the type 1 civilization future that people like Michio Kaku talk about, one of the most eminent scientists that is still alive in our time. You've seen him, the American, Japanese American, gray-haired fellow. Excellent to watch. And another one, Brian Greene. There's so many of them out there. So my whole point here is that it is actually very exciting, but it is scary because we're going to have to pass through this stage to get to the other side. Do you understand? All right. So for those of you who are smart and you think you can think, now I realize that starting a business is not easy. It's very tough. Okay, it can be, but it becomes easier now because we've got all these tools and AI can do things for you. I would actually say that the most difficult thing now would be raising money. But even VCs are going to be disrupted. They just don't know they're going to be disrupted yet. I mean, in fact, I've actually got an idea. I call it trustless VC, whereby I think that everybody should have access to money. You can do that with blockchain protocols, with Web3, with AI, and so on. Why do you need to, go to all these pitches and everything? Did you guys know that only 0.0012% today raise money? And in all of humans' history, only 0.00009% has ever raised $1 million or more. You see what I mean? So it's a rather anachronistic system. So that is still challenging. However, I do think that UBI, governments will have to be very creative because otherwise they will have massive civil unrest. Governments can become what I call GC, government capital, meaning that when you're as the economy changes, the government also has to change with it. So if people are not going to have jobs, this does not mean that all the jobs go away, but by my estimations, 70% of jobs will be gone. Okay? Well, I would say within the next 10 years, in my view. Some people might actually think sooner. I do think that a lot of listed companies on stock markets are kind of like zombie companies, if you think about it. You could take a vertical domain name, you could give it to AI, and the AI could do a lot of damage. Okay, so try to think about it from that listed company, for instance, with a high share price. Chegg, please do forgive me, but if I'm correct, there was a company called Chegg. I didn't even know who they were before, and then ChatGPT came out. Chegg is a kind of what they call an education tech company. Well, as of today, it's lost 99% of all its value because of AI. And that's a listed company. So the implication here is that listed companies, in my view, could temporarily, be kind of like zombie companies, okay? Purely because they have to revalue because AI changes everything. And that will lead to lots of layoffs. And that's what you're seeing. And that would also, lead to a dormancy in hiring. They may not hire as much as they traditionally did, which is why graduates are suffering and all of that stuff. But what I say to you is this: you register a domain name today, you use vibe coding, you can use Replits, Cursor, Base 20, Base 44, there's Lovable, there's a lot of them out there, okay? We've got a couple of them on 4irgpt.com. If you go there to our AI tools, we're still talking to a lot of them. We want to actually integrate some of those features into our platform. And my whole point here really is, and also even AI certification. Now, the reason why AI certification is going to be important, you can use it for consulting. It just shows your aptitude in your domain, whatever that is. So all of those things are coming. My whole point here is that register a domain name, use vibe coding, right, to start. The AI will just write the code and, you'll have a website. It's not going to be, all bells and whistles per se, but it will be functioning website, okay? And that's all you need to get started. And then from there, maybe you can go and raise capital from angel investors or VCs if that's, I'd be careful with the VCs though, because the VCs, have a totally different idea in terms of how they see their world, okay? I'm not saying that you shouldn't, I'm just saying that will be something that much, much, much bigger if that's what you aim to do, as it were. Then yes, indeed, go in that direction. But I do think that governments, if any of you are government officials listening to this, you now need to start thinking about GC, meaning government capital. And the way that works, the way I propose it, very simply, is that you now start using 10% of the treasury to fund businesses, young, sort of Gen Zs, millennials, whatever it is, anybody that wants to start a business that lost their job and all of this stuff. You make it seamless, you make it simple. You give them about $100,000, they have 100 years to pay it back, even when they're not alive. Because you know what? The Agentic AI can pay it for you. Are you getting it? Or is there still something you don't understand, mate? Please do forgive my English sense of humour. All right, so the whole idea about this is to make this very delightful for everybody to listen to and to learn from. So what I'm saying here is that I do believe that that's going to kick in. Unfortunately, governments are slow, but governments who understand the future are going to win so big. Okay, and the governments will provide what I call government capital so that you and I can get access to that capital a lot easier. Could even be blockchain. There's so many ways to do it. I'm part of a bit of a blockchain expert, if you like. And so we know, that's why I got my token, regulatory approved, because we know whether that 4IR token is going, fourth industrial revolution, and all the ecosystems that we're building around it. My whole point here is this, is that governments can take a 10% equity stake in any new business that it helps to provision that loan of $100,000 or £100,000 or whatever it is. Do you see what I mean? You've got 100 years to pay it. See, so this is what I say, that when you're trying to create egalitarian systems and you use creativity and critical thinking, it's amazing what you can come up with. I haven't seen anybody talk about that. I've got tons of ideas. I can never, ever be bored. I'm interested in creating environments that solves problems, solutions for humankind, right? Towards that type 1 civilization. I'm one of those people that believe that maybe if we're lucky enough to be alive, we might teleport to the other side of the universe. Wouldn't that be evolution? Michio Kaku says that actually, based on science and the, laws of physics, teleportation is actually feasible, right? Okay, so see this period as a point of our next stage of evolution. Yes, it's hard. But if you start today and then you think, yeah, wait a minute, the AI can do all of this for me. All I need to do is register a name, something that I enjoy doing. Or maybe you spot an opportunity in a certain vertical market that you want to exploit and you go and do that. And now once you will have to dedicate some time to it and so on. But once it starts working, you can live anywhere, mate. You can live anywhere. You don't have to wake up in the morning. Oh, I've got to take a train to work now, and all the traffic and all the whatever driving and all the suit in the air and all of that. You don't have to bother with any of that. You can live anywhere. Where would you like to live? I'm not going to tell you where I am. But anyway, do you see my point? Okay, you are free. And that's the whole point of the next stage of our lives in the fourth industrial revolution. So don't despair. Start now, because indeed we are likely to be moving into a deep recession because of high interest rates, inflation, because yes, they're going to build these data centers. It will lead to some inflation. Then there's all these silly, stupid wars going on that I don't know why the politicians and governments want to wage wars all the time. It's kind of silly. It's an economy, actually, to be perfectly honest. They make money from it, but it's stupid. And I believe that the AI, as human beings lose agency to AI, wars become meaningless, because you know why? The AI will ultimately make the decision. And you know what? If the AI has a goal to help create egalitarian advancement for humanity before it moves on, and if it thinks that humans are not fit for purpose, well, I think it will make a decision. Don't you? Thanks very much indeed for listening. Morpheus thinks. Goodbye.